Welcome to medieval Europe, a time of great changes, brutal wars, and cultural achievements. In this film, we explore this fascinating period using footage from the game Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. The late 14th century, Europe is plunged into war, devastation, and political intrigue. During this time, important historical events occur that will change the world forever. But this period is marked not only by brutal wars, but also by significant social and cultural changes.
Modern video games have reached an incredible level of realism. Today, games are not just entertainment. They are true works of art that can be used to create captivating films. We present to you a new format of video, where Andrzej Gubsa uses modern games to create documentary films. The first project was a film about the Chernobyl disaster. Using the game Stalker 2, we explore historical facts, important events, and details of life in the ghost town.
The Chernobyl nuclear power plant was supposed to become one of the world's most powerful electricity-generating facilities, and Pripyat was supposed to become a happy city of nuclear workers. The peaceful atom, which was supposed to become a worker, not a soldier, became a soldier who drove people out of their homes forever.
The second film tells the story of the Wild West.
Welcome to the Wild West. Today we will embark on an exciting journey through time to see how people lived and survived in one of the most legendary epochs in history. Using captivating footage from the game Red Dead Redemption 2, we will learn about the functioning of cities of that time, the available technologies and means of transportation, and what daily life looked like on the frontier of civilization. While kingdoms fought for power and influence, ordinary people lived their lives, trying to survive in the harsh conditions of the medieval era. Urban markets and trade routes flourished despite the constant threat of attacks. Trade between cities and countries provided the necessary resources and fostered cultural exchange. The medieval era was a time of intellectual and cultural rise. Monasteries and universities became centers of learning and knowledge, where manuscripts, maps, and scientific works were created, laying the foundations for future discoveries. At the end of the 14th and beginning of the 15th century, there were many important discoveries and inventions that greatly influenced the development of humanity. During this period, watermills began to be actively used to drive mechanisms such as hammers and spinning wheels. This greatly accelerated production and improved technologies. Watermills were used for grinding grain and producing flour. They were also used for other tasks, such as sawing wood and forging metals. In the early 15th century, religion played a central role in the lives of Europeans. The Christian faith was the foundation of the worldview and cultural identity of most of the population. People sought comfort and hope in religious rituals and prayers. Church holidays and processions were important events in people's lives, where they could celebrate together and strengthen their beliefs. Holidays such as Christmas, Easter, and local saints' days brought together people of all ages and social classes. However, religion also became a source of conflict. Heresies, religious disagreements, and political manipulations led to persecutions and the Inquisition. During this time, there were persecutions of so-called heretics and so-called witches, resulting in tragic consequences for many people. The foundation of society was feudal relations. The majority of the population consisted of peasants working on land owned by feudal lords. At the top of the social pyramid were aristocrats and feudal lords who owned large tracts of land and had their vassals. Cities became centers of trade and crafts. Artisans and merchants were an important part of the urban population, engaged in the production and sale of goods. Guilds united artisans of the same profile, regulating the quality of products and working conditions. Merchants traveled from city to city, exchanging goods and sharing news, contributing to economic development and cultural exchange. The social structure also included judicial bodies and a system of punishments. Justice was often harsh, and punishments were severe. People could be punished for minor offenses, and public executions served as a means of deterrence. Minor crimes included petty theft, public drunkenness, and disorderly conduct. Punishments for such crimes included fines, time in the stocks, or even corporal punishment. Serious crimes included murder, treason, arson, and highway robbery. Punishments for such crimes were much harsher and included execution or mutilation. For minor crimes, such as fraud or petty theft, offenders could be publicly humiliated. They could be placed in the stocks or a pillory in the town square, where passers-by could throw rotten vegetables or stones at them. Corporal punishments, such as whipping, were common for various crimes. These punishments were carried out publicly to deter others from committing crimes. Criminals could also be banished from the community or town, losing all their rights and property. Alchemy was one of the most mysterious sciences of that time. Alchemists sought the philosopher's stone and the elixir of immortality, experimenting with various substances and chemical processes. Despite the lack of significant success in these quests, their experiments laid the foundation for the development of chemistry. Engineering and architecture continued to evolve. Builders created complex and durable structures, such as castles, bridges, and cathedrals. Construction technologies improved, allowing for the creation of impressive and long-lasting structures, many of which have survived to this day. For example, the architecture of the major Czech city of Kutná Hora. In the game, this city is recreated in a location called Kutná. Kutná Hora is a city known for its rich history and architectural monuments. The city was founded in the first half of the 13th century and became an important center for silver mining in Europe. In the 13th century, the mines of Kutná Hora produced 1/3 of all European silver. This event sparked the so-called Silver Rush. Kutná Hora is famous for its Gothic monuments. The most famous of these is the St. Barbara's Cathedral, which is the second largest Gothic church in the Czech Republic. Construction of the cathedral began in the 14th century and continued until 1547. Today, Kutná Hora is a popular tourist center, thanks to its historical and cultural attractions. In 1995, the city center was included in the UNESCO World Heritage List. Another memorable location in the game that exists in reality is the Nebuchó Fortress. Currently, these are the ruins of a medieval castle located in the municipality of Trosky in the Liberec region of the Czech Republic. The castle was founded in the second half of the 14th century by Čeněk of Wartenberg. It is built on 2 basalt volcanic slag cones. On the lower peak is a 2-story building called Baba, and on the higher peak is a quadrangular building called Pana. The castle served as an important stronghold during the Hussite Wars and was never fully captured by enemies. Today, Trosky Castle is a popular tourist attraction thanks to its romantic atmosphere and unique architecture. Let's look at some tricks medieval builders used to construct such grand structures. Lifting cranes with enormous wheels. In the Middle Ages, these wooden wheels, known as lifting wheels or hoist wheels, were used to lift heavy loads on construction sites. These wheels were powered by people walking inside them, like a giant hamster wheel. This allowed heavy stones and other materials to be lifted to significant heights. The rope attached to the load passed through a system of pulleys and was wound around a drum connected to the wheel. As the wheel turned, the rope wound around the drum, lifting the load. These lifting mechanisms were an important part of medieval engineering and allowed for the construction of tall buildings and structures that we see today. Gothic architecture is the most striking symbol of medieval Europe. The Gothic style emerged in the 12th century and dominated architecture until the 16th century. Here are some key features of the Gothic style. Pointed arches and flying buttresses. These elements help distribute the building's weight and give it a visual lightness and airiness. Flying buttresses support the walls and allow for taller structures with thin walls and large windows. Tall, narrow towers and spires. Gothic buildings are often adorned with high, narrow towers and spires reaching upward. This creates an impression of reaching toward the sky and spiritual elevation. Vertical lines. The geometric emphasis on verticality in all parts of the structures. Narrow and tall windows, columns and arches create an effect of reaching upward. One of the most recognizable features of Gothic architecture is stained glass windows. They are usually decorated with patterns and images. The stained glass allows light to enter the building, creating a play of light and shadow. Medieval fortresses and castles were important elements of defense and symbols of power. Fortresses were often built on elevated areas, such as hills or cliffs, to provide a good view and make it difficult for enemies to attack. Water bodies, such as rivers and lakes, were also used to create natural barriers. Deep moats were dug around fortresses, which were filled with water to create an additional obstacle. Initially, castles were built from wood, but over time they transitioned to stone, which was more durable and long-lasting. The walls were massive and high to protect against attacks and siege weapons. Towers were built into the walls to serve as observation and defense points. The towers could be round or square and were located at the corners of the walls or along their length. The main entrances to fortresses were protected by drawbridges and massive gates. The drawbridges could be raised to block access to the fortress, and the gates were reinforced with iron grills. Inside the fortresses were residential buildings, warehouses, barracks, and other structures. The inner courtyards were used for training and housing troops. These features made medieval fortresses powerful defensive structures that could withstand prolonged sieges and protect their inhabitants. The majority of people in Europe in the early 15th century were peasants. They lived in villages and engaged in agriculture. The main crops were grains such as wheat and barley, as well as vegetables and fruits. Peasant life was hard and modest. Their primary goal was to grow enough food for themselves and their families, as well as to fulfill corvée, labor on their lord's land. Peasants often banded together in communities, helping each other in difficult times and sharing resources. Peasant homes were simple, often built from wood and clay with thatched roofs. Inside there was 1 or 2 rooms where the family cooked, slept, and stored their belongings. Floors were often earthen, and heating was provided by an open hearth in the center of the house. Smoke from the hearth exited through a hole in the roof, as chimneys were rare at the time. In some regions, houses were built on stone foundations to protect against moisture. Peasants kept a small number of livestock in their homes year-round for warmth and convenience. Peasant diet consisted mainly of bread, porridge, vegetables, and dairy products. Main dishes included various types of porridge made from grains and vegetable soups. Meat was a rarity and was mostly consumed on special occasions such as holidays or weddings. Peasants also made cheese, butter, and curd from the milk of their cows and goats. An important source of protein was legumes such as peas and lentils. The primary beverage was beer, which was brewed in every home and drunk instead of water, as water was often contaminated. Peasant families worked from dawn to dusk. Men performed fieldwork, including ploughing, sowing, weeding, and harvesting. Women managed the household, cooked, cared for children, spun and wove fabric, and also helped with fieldwork. Children learned to help their parents from an early age, performing simple tasks such as herding livestock or picking berries. Year-round, peasants worked not only on their own fields, but also on their lord's land as part of corvée. This mandatory labor could include road construction, forest maintenance, and animal husbandry.